The alarm screamed through the cold night air, echoing off the concrete walls of Greenhaven State Penitentiary. Guards ran across the yard with flashlights cutting through the darkness, shouting names and orders into their radios. Inmates who were supposed to be asleep were now pressed against the bars, whispering to each other, eyes wide with confusion and fear. But the real chaos was happening under their feet. A section of the prison yard had just collapsed. The ground had caved in like soft sand, swallowing part of the old exercise area. A guard's flashlight beam shone into the hole, and what they saw wasn't just dirt. There was a tunnel no one knew existed. It stretched deep under the yard, wide enough for a man to crawl through. Wooden planks supported the walls, and the air that drifted up smelled of damp earth and something old, something untouched for years. The shock was instant. Prisoners weren't supposed to be able to dig tunnels here. Not with the cameras, the motion sensors, and the constant patrols. But someone had done it, and whoever had was already gone. 3 inmates were missing. The first was Raymond Ray Haskins, a 42-year-old serving life for armed robbery. The second was Corey Miles, a young man who always kept quiet and drew maps on napkins. The third was Travis Boone, a former construction worker arrested for fraud, but known among inmates for his knowledge of underground structures. Together, they had vanished into the dark earth beneath Greenhaven's yard. The warden, Frank Ellison, stared down into the hole, his jaw tight. "How in God's name did this happen?" he muttered. "We checked every inch of this place." But even as he said it, something strange caught his eye. Wooden support beams inside the tunnel that looked far too old to be new. They weren't from any recent digging. They looked decades old, maybe even from when the prison was first built back in the 1950s. That realization made his stomach drop, because that meant this tunnel wasn't just a new escape route. It had been there all along, and someone had known about it. The guards threw ropes down, trying to see where the tunnel led, but the air pressure below was strange. Heavy, almost like the earth itself was breathing. A rescue team with oxygen tanks was called in. Reporters started gathering outside the gates. Within hours, Greenhaven Jailbreak was trending all over the country. But what the public didn't know, what even most of the prison staff didn't know, was that the tunnel didn't just lead outside the walls. It led somewhere else. Somewhere that wasn't on any blueprint or official plan. 2 days earlier, before the chaos, Ray Haskins sat on his bunk in cell block D, staring at a small square of paper he had been hiding for months. It was yellow and wrinkled, drawn in pencil, showing what looked like the prison's underground maintenance layout. Except this one had something extra. A thick, faint line that curved under the yard, ending at a point marked X. He'd found it by accident, tucked inside an old library book titled Foundations of Greenhaven. The book hadn't been checked out in over 30 years. Ray showed the map to Corey, who had a sharp eye for details. "This isn't part of the new blueprints," Corey said in a low voice. "Look, the tunnels here, they're too old. Maybe leftover from before the renovations." "Exactly," Ray whispered. "If this is real, it might go under the fence. Maybe even past it." Travis Boone overheard the conversation from his bunk across the hall. "If you're serious," he said, "you're gonna need me. I used to build underground pipelines. You start digging without the right angle, you'll drown in mud before you see daylight." Ray hesitated, then nodded. "We do it quiet. No noise. No loose dirt where they can find it." Travis grinned. "Then we better start tonight." They began during night shifts, when the generator's hum masked the scraping of spoons and metal scraps. Underneath an old storage shed near the yard, they discovered a patch of concrete that sounded hollow when tapped. It took them a week to crack through it layer by layer until the ground below gave way to something shocking. A man-made tunnel already waiting for them. It was old, all right. Wooden supports held it up, some covered in spiderwebs so thick they looked like curtains. The air was stale, but there was space. A tunnel tall enough to crouch in. Someone had built this long ago and sealed it off. "Someone tried to cover it up," Travis whispered. "Look." They poured cement over part of the entrance. "But why?" Corey asked. Ray's flashlight flickered. "Doesn't matter. We can use it." Each night, They cleared debris quietly and packed the dirt into trash bags they hid behind the shed. The tunnel led in a strange direction, slightly downward, twisting through the earth like whoever made it hadn't known exactly where they were going. One night, Corey stopped and touched the wall. "These beams, they're burnt," he said softly. "Like there was a fire here." "Keep moving," Ray said. "We're close." But as they crawled deeper, the air changed. The smell of dirt was replaced by something metallic, like rusted pipes and old machinery. Travis ran his hand across a wall and frowned. "This isn't soil anymore. It's concrete. We're under something." "Under what?" Corey whispered. Travis didn't answer. He pressed his ear to the wall, then froze. "Listen." From the other side came a faint hum. Rhythmic, mechanical, almost like a generator, but not one that belonged to the prison. The three men looked at each other, silent. Then Ray smiled. "Whatever's down there, that's our way out." They kept digging, following the sound. But that was their mistake, because they weren't the first to follow it, and they wouldn't be the last. Back in the present, as officers sealed the yard and reporters crowded the gates, Warden Ellison received a call from the state archives. The man on the other end spoke in a shaky voice. "Warden, you said you found an old tunnel?" "Yes," Ellison replied. "Looks like it's been there for decades. Any chance it's on record?" There was a long pause. Then the archivist said, "Sir, Greenhaven was built on top of an older facility, a military one. The original schematics were sealed in 1964, after an incident." "What kind of incident?" The line went quiet. Then the voice said softly, "The kind that was never supposed to be dug up again." Before Ellison could reply, one of his guards ran up, pale and sweating. "Sir, you need to see this." They led him back to the hole. The rescue team had dropped a camera down into the tunnel. The screen flickered as it descended, showing the rough walls, the beams, the dirt, until it reached an opening wider than the tunnel itself. First, it looked like another chamber, but then the camera tilted, revealing rusted metal stairs going down, disappearing into blackness. "Sir," one of the guards said quietly, "this isn't just a tunnel." The warden stared at the screen, his face drained of color. "It's an entrance." "To what?" someone asked. No one answered, because just then, the camera feed began to shake, and from deep inside the tunnel, a faint, metallic clang echoed through the speakers. Something was moving down there, and it wasn't any of the escapees. The clang came again, louder this time. It echoed through the feed, bouncing off the tunnel walls like something heavy being dragged. Every guard froze. The rescue team, already harnessed with ropes, stopped moving. Warden Ellison leaned closer to the screen. "Rewind that," he said. The camera operator did. The sound replayed. Metal on metal, followed by a faint scraping, like chains sliding across concrete. "Could it be them?" a young officer asked quietly. "The inmates." Ellison didn't answer. He knew that sound didn't belong to human movement. It was too slow, too deliberate, too heavy. "Pull the camera back," he ordered. But the camera didn't respond. The operator twisted the joystick again, eyes widening. "It's not moving, sir. The feed's jammed." The screen flickered, showing static lines for a second before the image returned, just in time to catch a shadow passing in front of the lens. It wasn't clear what it was, just a dark blur that moved across the light. Then silence. Every man around the monitor stepped back. "Get them out of there," Ellison barked. "Now!" Two rescue men in orange suits started climbing up, but one of them, Officer Blake, looked down again. "Sir, wait, there's movement. Someone's coming up the tunnel." The guards lifted their rifles, forming a perimeter around the hole. The scraping sound grew louder, then stopped just beneath the surface. A pale, dirt-covered hand shot out of the ground. One of the guards screamed before realizing the hand was human. "Grab him!" Ellison shouted. They pulled the man out, coughing and covered in mud. It was Travis Boone, the ex-construction worker. His face was gray, his breathing shallow. "Where are the others?" Ellison demanded. Boone looked terrified. "They didn't make it," he rasped. "The tunnel. It's not what we thought. It's... He broke off, gasping. You have to seal it. Seal it right now. What's down there? The warden asked. Boone's eyes darted toward the hole. It wasn't built by us. It was already there. Before anyone could ask more, a deep rumble shook the ground beneath them. Dust lifted into the air. The tunnel was collapsing. Everyone back! Shouted a guard. The rescue team scrambled away as the earth groaned. The hole cracked wider, concrete chunks breaking apart. Then the sound stopped, replaced by a strange, low hiss from below, like air escaping from a sealed chamber. When the dust cleared, Travis Boone was gone. The ground where he'd been lying had caved in, swallowing him back into the dark. 3 hours later, Greenhaven was in full lockdown. Helicopters hovered overhead, news vans crowded the gates, and police from nearby counties arrived to assist. Inside the command center, Warden Ellison stood over a spread of old prison blueprints. Across from him, a gray-haired man from the state archives sat nervously, flipping through a folder marked classified. Archive 1964. This is everything we have on the original facility, the man said, his hands trembling. Before Greenhaven was a prison, this land belonged to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They were building an underground bunker system here during the Cold War. Bunkers? Ellison frowned. For what purpose? Officially, storage. Unofficially, he hesitated. Some kind of experimental site. The records are incomplete. But one report mentions a collapse in 1964 that buried several personnel alive. They sealed the tunnels and built over them. That's why there's no record on your blueprints. Ellison's eyes narrowed. And you're saying our inmates found one of those tunnels? Exactly. But if the collapse reopened an old chamber, the archivist's voice trailed off. There's no telling what's still down there. Ellison rubbed his forehead. We need that tunnel mapped. Every inch of it. You can't send more people down there, the man warned. If those tunnels are unstable, they dug through half of it without dying, Ellison interrupted. We can handle it. But deep down, even he didn't believe that. In the medical wing, Officer Lisa Grant stood by a hospital bed where the only other survivor, Corey Miles, lay under heavy sedation. He'd been found hours after the collapse, near the boiler room, dazed and covered in dust. When he woke, his first words chilled her. Don't dig anymore. Lisa leaned over him. Corey, you have to tell me what happened down there. What did you find? He blinked slowly, his pupils dilated. We followed the tunnel. It went deeper than it should have. The air got cold. Travis said it felt like vacuum pressure. He swallowed hard. Then we saw the lights. What kind of lights? Not flashlights. They were already there. Faint blue, like coming through the cracks. Was anyone down there? Corey shook his head weakly. No people. Just machines. Big ones. Still running. Lisa frowned. Machines? After 60 years. He nodded. We thought it was power lines. Then Ray tried to touch one of the panels. It was warm, like it was still working. That's when the wall opened. Lisa's heart pounded. Opened. He looked at her with glassy eyes. Something was behind it. Something that's not supposed to move. Before she could ask what he meant, Corey began shaking violently. The monitor beside him beeped rapidly. Nurses rushed in, pushing her aside. His body arched once, then went still. The line went flat. Lisa stood frozen. Corey Miles was dead. That night, as the storm clouds gathered over Greenhaven, Warden Ellison walked back to the yard. The hole had been sealed with temporary fencing and floodlights. Rain tapped softly against the plastic tarp covering the collapse site. He knelt near the edge, staring at the mud. A faint metallic smell hung in the air. Then he heard it again. The same clang. He froze, looking around. All the guards were gone. The lights flickered once, twice, then held steady. The sound came again, from directly beneath him this time, like a hollow door shutting far underground. Ellison stepped back, his heart racing. That's when he noticed something strange. The mud near the tarp was wet, but not from rain. There was condensation forming in patches, small circles of steam rising from the ground. He knelt closer. The air smelled of hot iron. He peeled back a corner of the tarp. The ground beneath was moving. First, it looked like shifting water. Then he realized the soil itself was sliding slowly, as if something was pushing upward from below. He stepped back again, eyes wide. A thin crack appeared, running across the yard like a jagged scar. The earth trembled softly. Then, from that crack, came a sound no one in Greenhaven would ever forget. An old rusty creak, followed by the faint hiss of air releasing from a sealed space. It wasn't an earthquake. Something was opening, and it was right under the prison yard.